well, happy belated Independence Day. Hope you guys had a good 4th. My name is Kayla Cox, for those of you who maybe are new to the channel. And 6 Miles to Supper, it basically describes in a very simple way how I lost 80 pounds with intermittent fasting. Generally speaking, the way I practiced it that worked the best for me and where I lost the bulk of my weight was with OMAD, 1 meal a day, which was supper. And I would walk 6 miles a day, so 6 miles to supper. I lost down from 222. My lowest recorded weight was 142, and then I've been maintaining. My goal is to be in the 140s since then, and so I got down to that goal in late 2018. So just to kind of give you a little history of where I am and what I've done. So let's see here. Oh, and I also have a podcast, which I have not made a new episode for in a while. And also new episodes on this channel are coming. Also, just regular videos. It's just been a bit of a difficult time lately. I lost my father a month or so ago, and so it's just been hard to create content consistently. If you have questions about the weight loss journey, maintenance, weight loss, OMAD, intermittent fasting, walking, just anything like that, if you'd like me to try to tackle that question for you, you can just put it in the chat, and I will do my best to answer it. Although I am not a doctor or a nutritionist or a dietitian, I'm just someone who's been there and done that with weight loss, and I used to struggle with my weight. So, all right. Linda Cusera asks, are there rules that you follow? Calories you count? How long is 1 meal window? All right, so really good questions all around. First one, are there rules you follow? Absolutely. Everybody needs rules in order to function on the weight loss journey. Your rules, and you get to pick the rules, will help you to know how to behave in everyday situations. So, one of my rules, and this is a rule, this is one of the rules that's like, no matter if it's my cheat day, no matter if it's, a day where I'm going to just take the day completely off, one rule I always have is do not overeat. Now, do I obey that rule every single time I sit down to a meal? No. There are times where I sit down to a meal and I eat too much accidentally, or, I get up from the meal and realize like, oh yeah, I ate too fast, or I ate too fast and I ate a bit too much. But that's always like just one rule I have. Try my best to not overeat. Another rule I have is to not break early. With the exception, okay, so and this is where it's like there's nuance. So I have a set of rules for myself about when I will go off plan on purpose, when it is maybe not necessarily something that is so planned. So I'll give you an example. So if, let's say I'm practicing OMAD, right? That's kind of my day-to-day, that's what I do. And if my plan is to do OMAD, but someone comes over, say my mother-in-law brings me donuts, and she shows up to my door, she's like, look, I brought donuts and I've got coffee, and she brings it into the house. I am going to absolutely sit down and enjoy the donuts and the coffee, and I'm not going to have any guilt about that, because I have created that rule for myself that if someone comes into my life and requests that I eat, I'm going to eat. Now, that works for me in my life because I don't often have visitors. I'm not a social butterfly. I'm an introvert. So that rule might not work for everybody, but it does work for me. My rules are based on, yes, I want to maintain my weight loss, or if I was trying to lose weight, yes, I want to lose weight. But the more important thing above that is that I have the ability to have good relationships with people. So when people come into my life, like that relationship is more important to me than the being perfect on the plan. Because I can go back to the plan tomorrow. I can also, like, if I have donuts in the morning, and my plan was to have OMAD that evening, I can also eat less at OMAD. You know, like it doesn't have to be that I am then putting myself into a caloric surplus. Okay, so so yeah, don't break early. So, but otherwise, like even if I am like, oh man, I didn't really eat enough, I don't break early. The only exception would be if I'm actually getting a migraine. If I'm getting a visual migraine, that tells me I really didn't eat enough the day before, and I will eat. But those are the main rules that I have. And everything is on the menu. Also, that's another rule. I am allowed all the foods always, 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 always. It doesn't matter. Even in maintenance, even if my weight starts to creep up like 150, 151, 152, and I'm trying to get back down, I do not say, well, no cake until you get back in the 140s. I don't do that. All the food is always on the table all the time. Okay, calories. Are there calories that I count? No. Um, I mean, okay. I have a general knowledge just because struggling with weight my entire life. You know, you kind of just know, like one is like a tablespoon of mayonnaise is 90 to 100 calories. Like that's just in my brain. I can't remove it, right? So I know, like, okay, you know, every time I open a sauce packet, there goes 100 calories, or more, depending on how big that sauce packet is. Um, um, so, but I don't calculate the calories. In fact, a common question I get on this channel is like, how many calories are you eating? And I have to say, I don't really know because I mean, I know that it's enough to maintain my weight where it's at, so we can look at calculators and put in my, you know, like I'm 5'6" and I'm 39 years old, and you know, I wouldn't say that I'm super active, but I would say I'm moderately active, um, and so I don't know how many calories I'm burning day to day, um, and I don't, and I don't. If I ever start to gain, right? Like if the scale is starting to go up, I don't really find it helpful to try to go back and like calculate calories. Although I guess, you know, if it can be a good reality check for you, especially in the case of water weight gain. If you're just like, okay, I gained 2 pounds overnight, so what happened? And then if you can like just look back at what you ate the day before and show yourself like you did not eat 10,000 calories. So you didn't gain 2 pounds of like fat. It's just a water weight fluctuation. That can be helpful. But what I find more helpful than counting calories is just a general kind of, if the scale is trending up over time, I have been eating too much and I need to eat less. Um, and that works for me more than trying to like calculate things. Um, so yeah. And how long is one meal window? So um, so when I practice OMAD, I do not have a timer. Like I don't set a time limit or like I got to be done in, you know, 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever. Conversely, I don't say, well, I have an hour to eat. What I do is I just sit down to the table with my family and we sit there and we have our meal. So I have 3 kids and a husband. So sometimes we sit there and we talk, you know, and you know how you do, right? Sometimes, you know, the conversation kind of goes on and on and on, and you realize like, oh, we've been sitting here for like an hour. And then other times it's kind of quick, you know, 20, 30 minutes. So that, I would say that's kind of, if you're looking for how long does it take me to really eat, 20 minutes to an hour, but usually I would say more on the 20 to 40-minute range. Again, I don't like timing stuff. I'm not good at remembering to do so either. So yeah, like that's how long, if I'm just doing OMAD, that's about how long it lasts. But I have never thought of it as a window that opens up and closes. It's just like I just sit down and eat the meal. So, all right. Jana Patel says, hi. Is it okay to drink Diet Coke during the fasting window? Yeah. I think, well, I mean, you asked me, so yes, I'm going to say absolutely. If you love Diet Coke, I think it's a great thing to do because, I mean, the only thing I will say is some people find that Diet Cokes make them hungrier. Um, but if it helps you get through the fasting window, because it's like, hey, because sometimes, like, I love coffee. I have coffee with half and half in it during the day, whenever I want it. So during the fasting window, um, and so that has calorie. That has like a legitimate amount of calories, and you're talking about a 0 calorie drink. So, but to have the ability to have something to kind of break up the monotony of not having anything to eat all day is helpful. So, having something like a coffee or uh, sparkling flavored water, all that kind of thing can help. Um, so yeah, have your Diet Coke, I say. Uh, Meredith Rother says, how do you handle the family eating without you? What do you do while they are? Okay. So this has really not been a big deal for me, because we homeschool and we've always just been kind of laid back, kind of everybody does their own thing. People are getting up at different times, and I want my kids to structure their day on kind of on their own. Like, I want them to figure out, like, what do you like to do, like what, setting themselves up for a morning routine and things like that. And I also wanted them to be in the habit of eating when they're actually hungry, and not so much you must sit down and eat right now. Because again, I had a weight problem, growing up, and so I wanted them to kind of get in the habit of listening to their own body and stuff. Um, so because of that, a lot of times they're eating at all different times, and but it is important for me to have that one meal together. And so that really hasn't been a thing. If there ever is a time where they're sitting down for lunch and they want me to sit down with them, I don't have a problem with that. It just doesn't bother me. And but but sometimes they want me to eat. And again, going back to that rule that I have, if my kids want me to have lunch with them, and it's not very often, but sometimes they will do this, like, hey mom, you want to have lunch? Okay, I'll sit down and have lunch and I'll enjoy it. And uh so yeah, like, so if it is a situation where they actually want me to be there, I'll be there. I'll sit there. Having coffee too, that's a thing that sometimes will just kind of naturally happen. I'll be grabbing a cup of coffee, somebody will be sitting there eating, and so we'll have I'll have coffee, they'll eat. Yeah, yeah, so that's what I do. Carissa, and thank you for being a member, Carissa, of this channel. And if anybody would like to be a member, you get access to the vlog and the additional members only live that I do every week. And that is, there's a little join button down below if you'd like to join. So she asked, do you have yearly health checkups? No. Blood draws, have numbers improved? I have not. That's all I'll say. I mean, well, I won't get into it, but my experiences with various medical things have been mixed, to say the least. Yeah. Okay. But I do I do have a blood pressure cuff, so I look at that, and it has definitely improved. My blood pressure was never terrible, but the numbers have definitely improved. So like when I was obese, it was more on like the high end of normal into maybe like pre-hypertension, and now it's just normal. My pulse rate when I was obese was like 95, like resting heart rate was like 95 or so, and now it's like 60. So I feel really good. So there you go. I don't go looking for trouble. Rachel Russell says, did you find that your results were faster when you first started, or did it fluctuate throughout the entire time? Actually, okay, there's one more thing before I hit that question. There is a thing about yearly checkups, and like, because I don't want to argue with people. I know people have very strong opinions one way or the other about the whole getting a yearly checkup thing, but there was an article that I saved. Jay, it's in my Google Keep, I believe. It's called, is it time to ditch the yearly checkup or something? But basically, health outcomes have not improved with yearly checkups and things like that. In fact, people tend to get a lot of unnecessary tests and unnecessary procedures. So in other words, yeah, maybe people are finding things, but actually what we're finding, oh, and it's by Atul Gawande. Yearly checkup, man. Yeah, there you go. I think that was that one. So anyway, great book also by Atul Gawande is Being Mortal. Just really good. Okay, sorry. Back to Rachel's question. Did you find that your results were faster when you first started, or did it fluctuate throughout the entire time? Okay. My results were the best when I got consistent. So I would say, okay, so the 2015, I was very inconsistent. I would do a plan for a while, and then I would be in a hurry, and then I would quit. I would make it harder and harder and harder, and then I would quit, and then I'd finally get back on plan, and then I'd lose some more weight, but, it was not consistent. That whole year, I lost like 15 pounds. And so going from 222 down to say like 207 is pretty slow because it took me a whole year. Then I got really consistent in 2016. And so that was about a pound a week, which, if you had said that to me, back in 2015, oh, look, just lose a pound a week, like shoot for that, I would have said that's way too slow. Like, I want to be done with this in like 2 months. So I need to lose like 5 pounds a week, actually, that wouldn't have even been long enough. But in my mind, it was like 5 pounds a week or more, or it's failure. But when I got really consistent, a pound a week was what I lost. So from, say, 205 or so down to like 158, that was about a pound a week. Now, when I did my last bout of weight loss, so down from 158 down to 142, that was about a third of a pound a week. So even though I was way more consistent and knew what I was doing, was a very confident faster, like I knew what to do, it was just a lot slower. And I feel like that's because my body was saying, look, you're at a good weight, like we don't need to lose more. So it was just more hesitant, I would say, to lose more weight. So those were my results. And from what I've heard from most people, that's basically how it goes. Once you get consistent, then you have the most consistent results. Speed isn't so important. And in fact, when you really focus on speed and that's it, a lot of times you'll focus on doing things that are not sustainable. And then what ends up happening is those, fast results end up being not fast at all, because if you are doing things that are not sustainable, then maybe you drop the weight in say 3 months, but then if you gain that weight back in 3 months, like then you're back where you started. So your effective rate is like 0 pounds per week. So you have to think about long-term sustainability. What can you stick with for the rest of your life? That's the big key. Also, even though I say that I had the most consistent results when I was being most consistent, that does not mean that it was every week I lost a pound. It was on average. That's why I love the 7-day average, keeping track of that and looking how it's moving over time, because just fluctuations in water weight based on what you've been eating, your cycle, all the different things add up to fluctuations on the scale. So sometimes it can be very difficult to know, like how much did I actually lose this week, or how much, how quickly am I losing, because of the heartbeat, which is what weight loss looks like. It will be down and up and down and up and down and up. I've not met anybody ever who has just a straight line down. It's just not how it works, especially for women. Women have more fluctuations than men, but men's weight also does fluctuate. And when you're thinking about maintenance, just kind of know that generally people, their weight, people without weight problems, their weight tends to uh, fluctuate about 10 pounds. So when you're thinking about like, where do I want to be and that kind of thing, a 10-pound range, I think, is a good rule of thumb. You can try, depending on how much your own weight fluctuates, maybe you could tighten that up a little bit. Or if it fluctuates more than that, you might want to loosen it up slightly. Like Joe Holman of OMAD Revolution, he says 15 pounds is what he recommends. So, there's definitely some leeway there. Big Mig says, for your one meal, did you do more low carb, keto, or did you eat whatever you wanted? I eat whatever I want, always. Okay, like I never, throughout this entire time, this bout of weight loss, right? So starting in say 2015, I did not do keto, low carb. I've done low carb type diets when I was younger, and I hated them. I hated the way I felt on them. I do not do well, like emotionally, mentally, any of that stuff. I feel super deprived, low energy, resentful, like all the bad things when I'm low carb. I feel really good though if I eat plenty of everything with OMAD. So in other words, like I'm not gonna feel great if I don't have any protein or fat in my meal, okay? And I won't feel great if it's just super heavy on protein and nothing else. Because because randomly you'll have a meal, right, that is like, oh wow, that was like very little of anything except for protein. It's rare that that's a thing these days, but that can happen. It's like, ooh, the next day, it's like, no, that will not work for me. But if I have some of everything, then it feels a lot better. As far as for both my, just how I'm feeling and how my energy does throughout the next day too. So it's satiating. When I have like fat, of course that's satiating. Protein kind of sticks with you more, and it's more like the carbs seem to give more of a quicker energy. So if you've got some of everything in there, I find that works the best for me. But I do think that everybody is different, or maybe there are certain categories of people. Like maybe some people do better on keto. I mean, I have heard people say, "Oh, I love how I feel on keto," but then I've heard a lot of people say that they like the fast results from keto, but then they just can't stick with it over the long term because they don't feel that great on it. So, yeah, I have not done keto, although I've definitely done diets in the past that are like it, like Atkins back in the 90s. That was basically what people call keto, low carb. But I do, and another thing about eating whatever I want, what I found was when I finally just let myself eat whatever I want, and not have any rules like, oh, I got to be low carb, or oh, I've got to, be high fiber. I don't know, like, having those types of rules. As soon as I just said whatever you want, I was able to just stop when I was full. I didn't have all these like weird emotions around like, oh, I want it so much. It's just, it took away the power it used to have over me. It gave me more self-control. It was weird, and I didn't expect that. I really thought if I told myself I could eat whatever I wanted, that I would just be eating Ben and Jerry's all day, every day for the rest of my life. But it just doesn't happen like that. So, yeah. All right. Sharmila Saravanan says, do you follow OMAD all 7 days a week? No, I do not. So, I've always at least taken one day off a week. Sunday was the day I took off when I was, so in 2016, that's when I started taking a cheat day. So in other words, having a day off from fasting, no fasting on Sundays. And I did that. Through 2016, just always took Sundays off. Then in maintenance, I would take multiple days off sometimes. So I was just experimenting in 2016, late 2016 to late 2017. I was just experimenting with what do I really want to do? How much structure do I need in order to maintain? And I always at least took one day off, and then and it was at least Sundays, and then other days if I wanted it, and then let's see, really that stayed the same until about 2021, and we started going to church. So nowadays, like, I do technically fast in the mornings on Sunday, and really Saturdays are more my complete day off from, well, yeah, kind of. Well, no, see, really, so here's what it looks like these days. Generally speaking, Monday through Friday is going to be OMAD for me. Sunday will be like a cheat day, except for I won't start eating until about 11:30, because that's when the church service is over and we have coffee hour. But then Saturdays is going to be a 2 meal day, because we do pancake breakfast on Saturday morning. So we do pancake breakfast, and then I usually just don't eat until dinner. I experimented for a while with, like, how should I structure Saturdays, and I found that what I like the best is just 2 meals. So yeah, and I do recommend everybody take a day off a week. It's really helpful, not only from work but from fasting. It gives you like this break from it, which is nice. It's like kind of in the beginning, what I always think of it as is like a pressure relief valve. Like, all through the week, you're changing your behavior, which is hard, even if you enjoy it, even if you like the way you feel, and you're like, man, this is great. I have so much energy. I have so much time, and I'm getting so much accomplished. It's just nice to kind of have that day of just being off, and you can just, eat whenever, and then you get right back to it on Monday. I find that really helpful. And then what that does, if you do that, if you always take a day off every week, then vacations are not such a big deal, because the big problem most people have is they'll go on vacation and they'll be off plan, as I think everybody should do. When you go on vacation, you should just, enjoy your vacation. But then when you come back, that's when people have the problem. It's like, oh, it's so hard to get back to it. But if you are in the habit of, I know how to get back on plan because I've been practicing it every week, it just makes things simpler. Let's see, next question. Linda Cusera says, how does weight loss mode look different than maintenance mode? Did you go to OMAD all at once, or did you start with a protein shake meal earlier in the day? How'd you get started? Okay. So, weight loss mode and maintenance mode are not very different. With maintenance mode, you can be slightly less consistent, and you can maybe eat slightly more, but it's almost nothing. So it's better to just think of it as just being the same. Just keep doing the same thing that you're doing to lose weight, provided that your weight loss kind of slowed down. If you just keep doing what you're doing, and you'll find it, as long as you keep tracking your weight and have some sort of a plan, you'll get a feel for like how much to eat, and but really it's so slight that it's really not different. And I think that's a big mistake I used to make, was I would think like, oh, I can eat so much more now. I got down to my goal weight, now I can just eat all this food, and you'll gain it right back if you do that. So maintenance is easier and harder. So it's easier because you know what you're doing by that time. You know how to lose weight. You're confident about that. Like, you've learned lessons about, like, why do you sometimes overeat, and so things to watch for. Like, okay, like for me, when I'm stressed, like, I know, like, I need to watch out, because even if I don't break the fast early, when I sit down to that meal, if I'm super stressed, I'm going to be a lot more likely to overeat. And you can absolutely gain weight on OMAD if you sit there and overeat at that meal. So it's basically the same, just slight differences. Did I go to OMAD all at once? No. I started out, so in 2014, the very end of 2014, I heard about the idea of intermittent fasting, and I thought that's really interesting because I could see myself not eating for a certain period of the day and then being able to have bigger meals. So that appealed to me. So, but I was in the habit at that time of eating all day long, like all day long into the night, wake up first thing, gotta eat breakfast to kickstart my metabolism and all that good stuff. And so the way I started was really, really simple. The first thing I did was just told myself no eating past 10 p.m. So I put that into place, and then I decided like, okay, also like no eating before 6. So that's an 8-hour fasting window that I basically slept through. And then as I got more comfortable, I would push breakfast out a little bit further and a little bit further, and I went really gradually. And eventually I got to that point where it was like, wow, I'm eating like a late breakfast every day on purpose. And then eventually it was like, oh, I'm eating, really, it's more like an early lunch, not so much a breakfast anymore. And eventually, you get to like, I'm eating at 2. And then after a while, so I finally got consistent by the end of 2015, well, 2016, the beginning of 2016 in January, I got consistent with intermittent fasting. And at that point, I was probably at about a 16.8, 18.6. Okay, so it took me about a year of just kind of, well, again, I was quitting a lot because I was in a really big hurry, but it just kind of took me that long to get to that point where I was at a consistent, 16.8. And then once I was getting really consistent with the fasting and the weight was starting to come off, and I was just enjoying my life and the time that I found that I had and the mental space that I had, because I wasn't thinking about food all the time and I wasn't worried about food all the time, and debating in my mind like, like, what am I allowed to have, all that stuff, because I told myself, no, you're allowed to eat everything. Once I did that, then I started pushing it out a little bit further. I was like, oh, this is interesting. I got over my fear of longer fasting. Like, so in the beginning, I had read an article, like a random article that said, oh, women shouldn't fast longer than 14 hours. So I really thought, oh, I guess I can't go any longer than 14 hours. And I felt like I was pushing it, by being at a 16-hour fast. Like, oh, I don't, this is kind of maybe going against what they say to do. But I felt so good that I thought this can't be a bad thing, So then once I got to an 18.6, and then I get to like a 24. I went from a 24 basically to OMAD. And the way that jump happened, so that was the biggest jump I had. And the way that happened was my kids got a stomach bug, and I was just super nervous. And I was just nervous about eating. And I wasn't sick, but I didn't want to get sick either. And I could only force myself to eat supper every day. And then by the end of that week, because it was a bug that just kept going, I had lost a good bit of weight, and I felt good though. Like, as far as like just eating that one meal, I was like, wow, do people do this? Because this feels nice. And so I looked it up, and I was like, oh, actually, monks have done this for a very long time, and it's a thing. People do it, and so after that, it was off to the races. So that was my biggest jump. And so it was really more gradual. So it was like a consistent 24 that I was already at, and then jumped to OMAD. I don't like protein shakes, just in general. Have bad memories from childhood of like trying to gulp down these chunky protein shakes because we didn't have a blender. so my mom would like stir it together with a spoon, and back then they just did not mix well into the milk or whatever it was, and it would just be chunky. Oh, and it did not taste good. Maybe these days they taste better, but they were so bad. So yeah. So I think that answered everything. Carissa says, do you eat dessert and sweets daily? No. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. And there are times in my life Where if you ask me that, I'd be like, well, yeah, lately I have. My kids sometimes go on these baking kicks, and it's like, every night somebody's making a dessert of some sort. But then other times there's not dessert, and if there's not dessert, I mean, sometimes I will grab, something simple like peanut butter and chocolate chips, right? It's just like a really simple little dessert you can throw together, or what I think of as dessert. Um, but I don't. I'm trying to think of like today we didn't. Today we've already eaten because we have liturgy tonight, and so I had it's penny pasta with like a creamy tomato sauce, and I had a slice of bread also with butter, and it was like two good portions of the spaghetti or penny pasta. But I didn't have any dessert, and I didn't really have a desire for dessert. But then last night, um, we had I had a hot dog, a hamburger, and a slice of peach pie, and a a corn on the cob. Well, yeah, corn on the cob. An ear of corn. There you go, with butter and salt. And so that's what I had. So I did have dessert last night. Didn't have it tonight. And so yeah, and that's pretty typical. Like sometimes it's just more. Sometimes it's less. But I've never had a rule about it. So, Transformation in Progress says, "Hi Kayla, greetings from New York City. Ah, nice to see you. I just love your channel. Oh, thank you. I'm planning to purchase all three of your books. Thanks for mentioning my books. I should hold them up. She's talking about these books, or, well, Transformation in Progress. I don't know. Are you male or are you female? But the Laid Back Guide to Intermittent Fasting. Whoops, that's the Laid Back Guide to Intermittent Fasting. Overcoming weight loss obstacles, and the Laid Back Guide to Weight Loss Maintenance. So thanks for buying my book. If you bought my book, and also if you've ever read my books and you would like to leave a review on Amazon, an honest review, I would greatly appreciate it. It does help me as an author. So just for people to review them. So thank you. So Transformation in Progress says she's gonna purchase all of my books as a reward for reaching 190 pounds. Oh, currently 193, down 77 pounds in 8 months. Oh my goodness. You're like changing your life right now. 61-year-old female. That's awesome. Okay, so yes, you are female. So first of all, congratulations, 77 pounds in 8 months. That's spectacular. That is really good. Man, you're losing pretty fast. That's what, let's see, 8 months, that's what, 32 weeks? That's greater than 2 pounds per week. So that's a really fast clip. So congratulations. That's just so good. And I love hearing from people who are like over, say, 60. And I've heard from lots of people who are over 60, even into their 70s. And I believe I had an 80-year-old person send me an email one time about their weight loss success. It's never too late, is the point. Like when I was, let's see, how old would I have been? I was about to turn 30. So I was 29 and a half years old when I had my I've had enough moment. And is that right? Yeah, I was 29 and a half. And I thought, literally, I thought this. It was too late. It's like I've been overweight for too long. There's nothing I can do about it now. It's, it is what it is. I've had 3 kids. I won't be able to lose the weight. Like that was how my mindset was. And but it's never too late. It's like it's just never too late to lose weight. Yeah. So thanks for sharing that, Transformation in Progress. Consciously Aware says, someone told me not to fast the week before my period because it can mess up my hormones. Have you heard that? I have not heard that. But that was always a concern I had because, again, going back to how that article, and I don't even know where the article came from, like back then I was probably not as suspicious of things I read on the internet, these days I'm a lot more cautious about like, well, who actually wrote this and that kind of thing. But the thing I had heard was like women shouldn't because it will maybe mess with their cycle, and that was the whole, you know, don't fast for longer than 14 hours. But it has never affected anything like that for me. If anything, I would say things were better, maybe slightly more regular and slightly just, you know, better. So I don't tend to worry about that. But I will say, if you know, if somebody, if you are fasting and you find that it is messing with that, then I think it is important to stop. And because your monthly cycle is a very important um, thing. You know, so actually one of the things of utmost importance in a female's life, you know, the ability to reproduce is really, really, really important. So I think that's something that should not be messed with, right? And I do think it's super important to listen to your body, and everybody's body is different in that way. Like some people don't do well with fasting. Some people are probably more sensitive to fasting. Maybe some women really are. Like once they get to 14 hours, maybe that's their max. It wasn't for me. I can do OMAD, and like I said, not had a problem. Now, you know, one thing with periods is your appetite will increase during the period, probably. I mean, everybody's different here again, but what I have found is increased appetite during the period is a normal thing. And it's also a very tough time on the weight loss journey because you are hungrier, therefore you're probably eating more if you're listening to your body, and your water weight is probably going to be up during that time by maybe a couple of pounds, even if you are going to be on a downward trend. Like even if overall, yes, you're moving in the right direction, it may like temporarily increase for your period and then go back down. And that's emotionally difficult to be sitting there and the weight is up and your appetite is up and you're seeing those numbers and maybe it's upsetting, and you know you're trying to lose weight, so it can be difficult. But if you just hang in there and just like if you can just get through the first couple of periods on the weight loss journey and just see that the numbers do normalize after the period's over, provided that you don't actually use that as a reason to just go off plan and you know have no rules and overeat and all that stuff. As long as you just stick to your plan, continue to stick to your plan, when the period's over, the numbers will normalize again and you'll get through it. And then the next time your period comes around, you'll remember, oh right, yeah, like the number's gonna go up, I'm gonna be a little bit hungrier, it's okay, just keep sticking to the plan, and then it just gets easier with everyone that passes. Okay. Ramon Mendoza 1738 says, what do you recommend for a beginner? Okay. If you're brand new to the weight loss journey and intermittent fasting, I would recommend this. And I mean, this is what I did that actually worked. Okay. Number one, start weighing every single day and keep track of your 7-day average. The reason for daily weighing as opposed to weekly weighing or monthly weighing or whatever is your weight is going to fluctuate. And if you weigh every day, you're going to start to understand how much your weight fluctuates, because sometimes a person's weight fluctuates. It can be major, like 3 pounds overnight, 5 pounds overnight, sometimes 2 pounds, you know, a pound. Once you start to see what your pattern is, you start to know what is normal, what's not normal, and that just gives you peace of mind. Also, if you're weighing every day, then you can start having an average. You can average your weight, and averaging your weight helps you to see how your weight is trending over time. Because again, water weight's going to go up and down, and it might be kind of dramatic. So if you are averaging your weight, watching it, how it moves, and if you're weighing every day, by the way, the emotional stuff like goes away a lot faster with the scale, because you're just weighing every day. It's like what you do. It's just a part of your, you know, daily routine. This is what I do. I don't get emotional about flossing my teeth. I don't get emotional about weighing. That's not to say you're not going to have bad days. You will have bad days and you will have a number that's going to make you mad, but in general, it like becomes not a thing. It's just what I do. I get on the scale, and then I go about my day. Okay, so that's the first thing, weighing and tracking that number. Because if you're not tracking, then it's going to become very frustrating very fast, because you're not going to know, is your plan working or not. If you're trying to lose weight, then weigh. Okay, so weigh every day. Start doing that right away. I would recommend starting out with the fasting window that you can easily do. Not one you can white knuckle through, not one that feels super challenging, just one that feels good. The idea will be, and this is just my strategy, but to have a plan that's easy to stick to. It's like, this is so easy, I could do this forever. And as time goes on, increasing the fasting window a little bit more and a little bit more until you get to, most people find that at about a 16-8, they start seeing weight loss. Now, can you practice a 16-8 perfectly consistently and gain weight? Yes. Like I said, you can gain weight on OMAD. If you sit down and you eat 3,000 calories at your OMAD and you only burn, 1,600 calories a day, you're going to gain weight. You're going to gain weight pretty rapidly. So it's not just about the fasting. The fasting is a tool. It's not magic that happens because you like squished your window down to a certain amount. It's that most people find if they have a compressed window to eat in, they're going to eat the right amount of food. It's just really easy to eat too many calories if you're allowing yourself to just eat all day long whenever you feel like it. But if you have like a shorter window, it's just easier to eat the right amount. So as you're pushing it out, I would work on, as you're doing that, just work mainly on consistency and slowly pushing out. And then at each meal, do your best, even when you have a very short fasting window, start doing your best to eat with as few distractions as you possibly can. So you can make a no screen rule, right? So no TV, no phones, no distractions while you're eating. Just focus on the food. Eat whatever you want, but focus on it. Because when you're not paying attention to the food, it's very easy to eat way too much food. So weighing daily, pushing that window out slowly. And then once you feel confident in your fasting ability, and you've gotten to something like a 16-8, I would say at that point, I would write down a plan. So write down what your rules are for yourself. Write down, so like if you're going to do some sort of exercise, write that down. Write down any food rules you have. If you're going to allow yourself something during the fasting window, put that down too. Do it on purpose and run that for 6 weeks as an experiment, just to see, like, is this going to work for me? And then if it works, if you're, doing that plan and your weight is trending down, just stick with that plan. Just keep doing that plan until you get down to your goal weight. And if you ever have trouble, then you can, sit down with your plan and maybe make a small tweak to make it start working again. So that's what I'd recommend for a beginner. Maria Sanchez says, I did OMAD from Monday to Saturday and I didn't lose a pound. I am a 56-year-old woman, and the next week I did the same thing but lost nothing. Wait. Okay, so basically she's doing OMAD and didn't lose anything for 2 weeks straight. Okay, so a couple things. One, Maria didn't mention how where she's actually at with her weight. Okay, so if you are weighing daily, and if that'll be the first thing. If you're weighing daily, then yes, you'll kind of know more. Is the weight actually staying the same? Because it depends. If she just weighed once a week, right? Like maybe she weighed on an exceptionally low day one week, and then the next week she weighed on an exceptionally high day. That can happen. But what's more likely is that either she is already almost at a normal weight, which does happen. If you're almost to a normal BMI, you should expect, best case scenario, fractions of a pound a week on average. Which means when you're talking about just 2 weeks, it's just not long enough to tell. Really, even if you have a good bit of weight to lose, 2 weeks really isn't long enough. 6 weeks of consistency with a plan, that can tell you like, yeah, that's working, or no, that's really not working. But because weight fluctuations can just be so dramatic, it's just very hard to tell in such a short amount of time. So it might be that the weight is slowly coming off if she's close to a normal weight. She's just moving down really, really slowly, and it's more like fractions of a pound. It feels like, well, it's not even a pound, but maybe it was half a pound. Maybe it was 0.2 of a pound. Or, and this is the other very likely option, you might be eating too much food in order to lose weight. You have to be in a deficit. And so, if the scale does not move down week after week after week, even if you're on OMAD, it just means at that one meal, you're eating too much food. And I know that sounds disheartening, but it's just so easy to eat a bunch of calories. Like right now, especially like if you eat at restaurants and stuff, or eat a lot of prepackaged food, like highly processed foods, they are created with the intent. They want you to eat more food. They want you to buy more food. So it is made with that intent. And so it is easy to sit there and just eat, 2,500 calories when that's not how many you need. It's really easy to eat too many calories. It's really easy to get the amount of calories you need in order to lose weight. So I know that can be frustrating though, because it can feel like, well, I'm only eating once a day. Like, how is it possible that I wouldn't lose weight? But it is. It depends on how much you're eating. And one quick way to kind of a sanity check would be, go based off of your memory and write down, everything that you had at the meal, and count up the calories. Do that for the past couple of meals that you've had, if you can remember it. And if it seems like, maybe you're eating in a deficit, then you could try it for a couple more weeks. And if it's still not moving and you really, really think that you are eating in a deficit, you could try weighing and measuring all the food. Because sometimes it can be very tricky to really know how many calories you're eating, because there are certain things like peanut butter, mayonnaise, ranch dressing, any of those sauces and things like that. You can think, oh, that's just a few calories, but actually it's a lot of calories. So you might be surprised when you add it up how quickly, you can go to a fast food restaurant and easily eat 1,500 calories just at one meal, and it's not even hard to do. You would think it's like, oh well, that's a lot of calories. It's pretty easy to do. So I know that it's tempting to want to say, well, no, there's no way I'm eating too much. Most people think that. Most people think there's no way I'm eating too many calories. I was dead convinced. That's not a thing. I was so sure that I was not eating too much food. I remember being obese and thinking, this is a mystery to me. I felt like I didn't eat the same. I felt like I ate the same amount as my husband. My husband's 130, and I was sitting there at 222. I was like, there's no way that this is right. I eat the same amount as he does. But when I really started to pay attention to how often did I eat, how often was I just grazing, going, getting more food, or when we sit down to dinner, what does my portion size look like versus what does his portion size look like? How many times do I get seconds and he's not getting seconds? and seeing how much he was just moving around and seeing how I like to sit. All of those things I started to see like, no, wait, he just moves a lot more and eats a lot less than I do. It's not a flattering thing to realize about yourself, but yeah, but it is true. That was what was happening with me. I was eating, and then once I started eating OMAD consistently and I started losing weight consistently, uh, I definitely at the end of the day, like in November of 2016, I had gotten down to my goal weight, and I could definitely see that when I was obese, I was eating way too much food. I just was. And I remember, and it's so funny how people do this, but I remember my granny, she had noticed that I had lost weight and everything. And she asked me, like, well, how'd you, how'd you lose weight? And I said, I stopped eating so much. And she said, well, you didn't eat very much at all. But that was the thing. It maybe wasn't obvious to people because maybe I didn't just sit down and have tons and tons of food out in front of people, but it was just the constant eating, the constant grazing, I think, that really added up. So yeah. RMGME says, do you have any foods that trigger a binge? Now, people have different definitions for what is a binge and all that. And so I would say, and this, I guess it's kind of a subjective thing. I don't think I've ever dealt with what I would call like binge eating. I don't think. I guess it would depend on your definition. Have there been times where I have felt like I just can't stop eating? I mean, yeah, but not to the extent of what I think it gets like for some people. But yeah, so I don't think I've ever had like a binging kind of behavior. Overdoing it on foods, yes. Like eating to the point of like, oh, like I feel almost sick. I've done that before. But not, yeah, I would say that. So, but I will answer it this way. So, are there foods these days that I feel like I can't really stop on, or I have a hard time stopping on? No, I think probably the closest thing to that for me would be, it is hard for me when I'm in an awkward situation and there's food around for me to not eat out of discomfort. Because if you're uncomfortable and then you're chewing on something, like there's no pressure to talk or whatever. I don't know. It's just a weird thing that I have when I'm like in a social setting and it's awkward. Yeah, that would be one time where it's harder for me to just stop eating even if I'm full. But yeah, most other foods, so like double stuffed Oreos used to be one that would be like, man, I could eat like just a whole sleeve just easily, without even really thinking about it. But these days, like, I'll eat some and I enjoy them, but I can stop. And I want to stop, Yeah. Darlene says, my family and I went on a cruise last week. We got back last Sunday. I gained 6 pounds. I went back to my fasting schedule, and I'm down 5 to 6 pounds already. That's awesome, Darlene. And thanks for being a member also. Yeah, that's a funny thing about vacation. And that's another thing, by the way, I think that really discourages people. They come back from vacation and they get on the scale, and kudos also to you for getting on the scale. Some people won't even get on the scale. They'll just be afraid of the number. And so they'll get on the scale and the scale will be up. And a lot of times it's by a significant amount. But a lot of times, most of that weight is just water weight. When we're traveling, that's another thing people tend to like kind of have, hold on to water. But also when you're eating food, like fast food or out at restaurants and things like that, a lot of times it has a lot more salt and sugar in it than what you're used to at home. And so all those factors kind of combine and plus you're probably eating more calories than normal. So then you get on the scale and it is like a bigger number, but you go, if you just get right back to it, that water weight will go away, and any little bit of weight that you actually did gain will go away too. So yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining. All my books are available on Amazon, and also basically all the different retailers out there. I think you can find it. Yeah. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you guys next week.